Let's run through Scott's top 12 outfield rankings heading into 2024. Up next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FBT in 5 on Thursday, November 30th. I am Frank Stanfield, joined by Scott White, and we'll take a look at the first 6 names here in your outfield rankings. No surprise, up at the top, Ronald Acuña, who just had maybe the best fantasy baseball season ever. 41 homers, 73 stolen bases. I don't know what I was looking at. Number 2, we have Julio Rodriguez, followed by Corbin Carroll, Mookie Betts, Kyle Tucker, and Fernando Tatis. Scott, the top 3 names on this list, Acuña, Julio, Corbin Carroll, all expected to be top 5 picks, massive power, massive speed.
Yeah, and it's kind of a new era in fantasy because you can get hitters as good as those 3 are: Ronald Acuña, Julio Rodriguez, Corbin Carroll. Likely to help in batting average, likely to help in power. But then in addition to that, they're going to give you 40 to 50 steals. The rule change that took effect, the rule changes that took effect last year, are in part account for that. That hitters of this caliber are exploiting those rules to the full extent and able to deliver those massive stolen base totals. I say 40 to 50. Julio Rodriguez was 37 last year, but close enough. 40 certainly within reach for him. And if you can get a first-round caliber bat who also gives you that big of a leg up in stolen bases, I mean, that's just that's such an advantage that you can't afford to pass up. And that's why I have Acuña, Rodriguez, and Corbin Carroll, all 3 in my top 4 players overall for next year, with Bobby Witt, a shortstop, also capable of delivering the massive stolen base totals. He's the other of the top 4 for me next year.
Number 4, 5, and 6, I mentioned Mookie Betts, Kyle Tucker, and Fernando Tatis. Kyle Tucker is someone who, on the Full Length podcast, I know you did express some questions regarding the sprint speed kind of declining the past couple of years.
Oh, it's not very good. He's in the lower third of the league in terms of sprint speed, and yet the stolen base production has increased each of the last 3 years as the sprint speed's gone down to the point he stole 30 bases this past year. And a guy with 30-30 potential who can also hit for average, low strikeout rate for Kyle Tucker. The batting average hasn't been super consistent over the years, but you would expect it to be high with as little as he strikes out. A guy with that profile certainly seems like a first-round caliber bat, and I do have him 7th overall for 2024 in categories leagues. But to me, it's like the top 6 players are solid, while number 7, Kyle Tucker, I could be talked out of. I think Kyle Tucker has more in common with like a Fernando Tatis and some other bats who will go early in round 2 even than he does with that top group, than he does with players like Julio Rodriguez and Corbin Carroll, just because I have I see more ways Kyle Tucker's production could take a step back than I see ways for him to potentially take a step forward.
The back half of your top 12 outfielders, we have Aaron Judge, Yordan Alvarez, Juan Soto, and then Mike Trout, Luis Robert, and Cody Bellinger. Specifically with Judge and Alvarez, Scott, we know these 2 guys, they could in any given year be the best hitter in baseball, both batting average-wise, power-wise, but both have dealt with various injuries throughout their careers.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Aaron Judge was the number 1 player in fantasy, a distant number 1 in 2022. He was almost as distant of a number 1 in 2022 as Ronald Acuña was in 2023. And, prior to hurting his toe, he was on like a 51 homer pace, was Judge. So it's not like his production diminished that much. It's just, that big body tends to get hurt a lot. We've seen it derail seasons for Judge in the past, and you have to factor it into his cost for next year. And then Yordan Alvarez, I think in terms of what a hitter is capable of, like he's the closest thing out there to Aaron Judge. He's kind of his mirror image, but he also has those durability issues where that you have to factor into the price tag. So they both have top 5 overall potential for sure, but they're going to be more like late first rounders, maybe even pushed into early round 2 on draft day because of those health concerns, which speaks to how deep the top of the draft pool is next year, that you could get players that good, that late.
The last 3 on this list here come with a decent amount of questions. Mike Trout, Luis Robert, Cody Bellinger, all very talented players in their own right. Mike Trout has not played more than 119 games since 2019. Luis Robert finally put it together this year, but comes with an injury history of his own. And Cody Bellinger, while he was amazing this past season, the prior 2 years, he looked like one of the worst hitters in baseball. So what are we doing with these 3?
Well, there's a drop-off after Juan Soto at number 9, clearly. Yeah. For what it's worth, I have since moved Luis Robert ahead of Mike Trout, since Robert's capable of delivering stolen bases that Trout doesn't do anymore. But yeah, I'm not super comfortable with any of these 3 players. But already we're at a point now where like the scarcity in the outfield is requiring you to maybe stretch your comfort level for a player who could give you big production. I mean, if we could count on Luis Robert staying healthy, there wouldn't be too many concerns there. But yeah, Trout has major health concerns, and Bellinger, there's reason to be skeptical of the season he just had.
And he's a free agent this offseason. So we'll find out hopefully soon where Cody Bellinger will be playing in 2024. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Audacy app, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, and we'll be back again on Saturday. Bye-bye.